What's up, YouTube fans? Today we're going to take a look at the ThreeZero Transformers MDLX Megatron. So this is the next in the MDLX line. I actually saw this for the first time at TFCon at the Chosen Prime booth. It was a prototype. This is the production copy, but the paint looked pretty good then. It looks even better now. It's got a nice shine to it with some details. We'll go over that, but definitely happy this finally came out. It's not perfect, and we'll talk about it, but I definitely like how it looks right out of the box. You get that nice, shiny silver paint with this Decepticon logo tampoed there. So the little details there on the chest. Red paint here in kind of a shiny metal. All sorts of painted details. You got a wash over this. It's kind of like a brownish wash. You can see a little bit here on the foot. But that's kind of throughout, like a little bit of this weathered look all throughout. That wash kind of shows up. You got lots of detail on the back, pretty much everywhere. Really good looking, just right out of the box with the paint here. There is a little bit of setup to do if you want him to look more like the Megatron we know. First, you could take this gun piece here, and this will peg right into his back right there. It is nice and secure, so sometimes they make things that are not secure, but this one happens to be nice and secure, and that does complete his look. That looks really good. Speaking of, let's get in close on the head so you can see the head sculpt. You got red eyes with a black outline. The face is obviously kind of a unique, the whole thing is really a unique take on Megatron, but the face definitely is more like a younger version. And that was true for the Optimus too. It looked like a younger version of Optimus, kind of like from another universe, but I do think it looks good. You can also, he needs this fusion cannon, right? So this comes in two parts in the box. You're just going to plug it together right here. It is keyed, so you want this little cutout there to fit around this. And there's a smaller one on the bottom. It looks like that. And then that's going to plug into his arm right here. And it is nice and secure. So again, I'm glad that they worked out the tolerances on that. There's other things which need better work on the tolerances, but at least the gun and this back piece, they do work really quite nicely. All right, let's go over his articulation, which is kind of the whole point of this guy. The head is on a double ball peg, so the head itself is on a ball peg. It's up to there, and the neck can go back as well. And then down to there, so you can get way down. Looking inside his own chest. You have side to side. You can rotate all the way around. And then the neck itself will move. Sometimes it gets out of whack, so you can just lift up on the head, lift it up the ball joint if you need to adjust it, and then you can adjust that neck. But that really works very well, that whole joint. For the shoulder, you have a butterfly joint here. I'll show you from the back because there's some nice detail that gets exposed as you use that butterfly joint. That's pretty cool. And then there's a ball peg. It's a die-cast ball peg. The shoulder itself can go in and out here. You can lift up on this ball peg, get the shoulder up to there, and then you can get, let's see if I can get this all the way up. And then you can get this shoulder up, so you can get the shoulder all the way up to there using both the inner ball joint and then the joint here at the outer arm. That works really well. There is a notice about being careful with this shoulder pad, so I guess you can scratch the paint if you're not careful, so just take note of that. You have a rotation at the bicep. You have a double jointed elbow that gets you the full bend, and you have a nice, beautiful metallic maroon there. For the hand, it is on a ball joint. It goes in and out, rotates around pretty much any direction. The ball joint can be a little finicky. In mine in box was actually off, but that's what it looks like. Getting the hands on can be a little challenge, but since we're here, might as well look at the other hands that we get. So you do get kind of this sort of gripping hand, and getting these on, especially new ones, what happens is the ball joint itself will collapse on you, so you kind of have to twist it on, especially when it's the first time you're putting it on. Then you can get this, but now he's got that, classic Megatron look there. Or if you prefer, you can have a pointing hand. Now this is meant for the other hand, but you can have a pointing finger. Or you can use this gripping hand. And not really sure what you do with the gripping hand because there's nothing to hold here. I guess you could maybe take something like this. Yeah, I don't even know what you would hold, but I guess you could do that. But you don't really have a need for a gripping hand, so my suggestion would be to use this open grip so you can get that look. There you go for the hands. For the waist, you have ab crunch here at the mid ab joint. It's all the way down to there, and then it exposes some of the details back here. ThreeZero is very good at that. You can go back all the way to there, which exposes some more details here. So they really put in the work to have all that paint and detail there. That looks really nice. Side to side movement there. That works really well. You have a rotation at the waist. I recommend holding here in the middle and then back here. If you hold the hip skirts, you're gonna have problems. I'm gonna talk about the hip skirts in just a second, but hold here, you can rotate the waist all the way around. Everything's pretty tight, so you do have to kind of hold it in order to use the articulation. All right, now let's talk about the hips. This is the problem area for this whole figure. These hip skirts here like to fall off very easily, and it just showed you, it's such a small little ball joint. I thought maybe there's a piece of flash, but what's happening is the top of it is colliding with the silver piece back there. So as you lift it up, it's just pushing itself off, and it's just a silly thing. You know, they could have designed this so that it didn't do that. It didn't collide. You know, maybe give it a better than just a ball joint or something. I'm not really sure, but this is the third time. All three figures I've looked at, the Optimus, the Bumblebee, and the Megatron, they've all had issues with their hip skirts. Anyway, if you fold all the hip skirts up, you can bring this hip joint down, and that'll allow you to get it up to here. And if you go too high, you will knock this off. And I just find this to be such an irritation. You really can't get it up. If you get it past that point and then get it underneath, then you can get it to stay. But like I mentioned, it's just a bad design. But it goes up to there, back to there, and if you bring it down on the drop-down joint, you can get a little bit more. If you put it back up to here, you'll have a harder time. So you do want to bring that down. Back to there, up to the side. Nicely toleranced friction joint there. You have rotation at the thigh, at the hips. All right, and all of them are on these little tiny ball joints, so just be wary of those. For the knee, you have a double jointed knee, gets you the full bend. You can have it bent like that, or if you prefer, you can bend at the top joint first, and then you can bend at the bottom, and you can have it look like that. So whichever look you want, or however you're needing to pose it, you just bend at the right joint first, and then you can have different looks. This knee piece here does move a little bit to cover down, but I like the design of that knee. We're just going to leave that hip skirt off because it's just going to keep falling. We also get a ankle tilt here, so there's actually a separate piece right here. And it actually looks really good. The way they did this, you see, it looks like the gun grip, and then here you've got the inner leg piece. That's really good looking. But this will move with the foot, so you can get the foot tilted this way, that way, forward to there, back to there, and then you have a toe tilt right here built in. So that'll get up to there, down to there. There's no drop down joint on this one like there was on others, so don't try to pull this downwards. But you do get some movement out of it. I just wish there was a tiny bit more to go, but it does work pretty well. Now we do have one other option here with the weapon. So his fusion cannon can be reconfigured in a couple of ways. So if we pull this off of here. You can actually detach it from this base piece. You can leave it on the back or you take it off, whatever you want. This piece here obviously looks like, you know, a sight at the end of the gun. You can plug that into there. You can have this kind of super long gun if you like that. Or you can pull this off, pull this back out of here. And by the way, this is keyed, so you can see it's not circular, right? It's kind of angled. So you can only put it in one way on both sides. But if you like this, you can have the kind of the skinnier fusion cannon. That look. Pretty nice. And by the way, if you have this configuration, this just you set it aside. It doesn't store anywhere. Or if you want, you can have that look. I'm not sure anybody would do that, but you can do that. And for a quick size comparison, there it is next to the MDLX Optimus Prime, which we reviewed previously, and the more recent Rise of the Beasts Voyager class Optimus Prime. And you can kind of see it doesn't really scale with any existing things. So if you're trying to put it with a separate display, it won't really go with the Masterpiece. It's not going to really go with the retail scale, just because not only the aesthetic, but just the size overall, they're a little bit bigger. You could probably cheat it, but still, it just looks a little too big. So they kind of have to go on their own. So me personally, I would recommend displaying it with the other MDLX figures from ThreeZero. So final recommendations on the ThreeZero MDLX Megatron. And this is a tough one for me because I really like how this figure looks. I like the accessories. I like the additional configurations for the fusion cannon. The posing is pretty good, but the biggest problem with this, without a doubt, is the hip skirts. The front hip skirts and the side hip skirts like to pop off way too easily. Just doing this simple pose you see here, they popped off several times. You can put them back on, but it's just an irritation. And for something that doesn't transform, you know, this is just an action figure, it really should not have that kind of issue, right? Because the only function it has is to pose. And if every time you pose it, these hip skirts fall off, then that's just not good. So I got to give this a 3 out of 5, which is a partial recommendation. Even though I love the figure, I think it looks great. It works really well, with exception to those hip skirts. That's something they really should have fixed. The other thing is, this is not the first time they've had this problem. So if you look at the Optimus, they did the same thing. Now I've actually taken off the hip skirt, but the way they designed it was they had this back hip skirt and then they had the side hip skirt attached to the back hip skirt. And that was also a hip skirt that liked to pop off. Same thing with Bumblebee. They had another issue with the hip skirt. So you would think they would figure it out by now and fix it, but they haven't. So I got to give it a 3 out of 5. But needless to say, I really do love how it looks, and I love the options. They need to fix the hip skirts on the next one. I hope they do. Hope they change the design. But that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks to Chosen Prime for sending this out, and we'll see you next time.